Jake Sully, the main character, introduces the film by describing his straightforward and contented existence with his family in Pandora as the chief. He states that he and his wife Neytiri had a total of 5 children, a human male named Spider, a daughter named Spider, an adopted daughter named Kiri, 2 sons named Neytiri and Lok, and a daughter named Tuk. Jake continues by explaining that Kiri is the child of his beloved friend Grace, who passed away while aiding the Na'vi people in their struggle against humans. Spider, on the other hand, was left behind when everyone else returned to Earth following their battle. Jake claims that the kids interact and play well with one another. Jack says that although the kids are all different colors and sizes, they all live together as a family. When Spider is revealed to be the son of Colonel Miles Quaritch, the villain who nearly wiped out the Na'vis, Neytiri dislikes him. It turns out that Spider was too little to be sent back to Earth, so he was left behind on Pandora. On the other hand, Kiri is quite fond of Spider and feels a special connection to him. The little human boy has lived with the Na'vi people his entire life and believes himself to be one of them. Neytiri and Jack are having a conversation one night when they both spot some bright spacecraft in the sky. The spaceships suddenly reach them and begin inflicting mayhem. The Omaticaya environment is set ablaze, causing extensive damage and the demise of numerous creatures. A squad of warriors armed with robotic artillery emerges from the spaceships and destroys what is left of the location. When Neytiri and Jake, who are observing from a distance, discover that it is an RDA spaceship carrying humans who are on their way to Pandora to colonize and construct another main operations station, they are astonished. The action then switches to one of the human research facilities where a Colonel-like Na'vi clone has been successfully made by scientists. The information and memories gathered before his death have been fed to him. As a result, everything is known to the Colonel's clone except for who and how he was killed. The scientists have created clones of other soldiers, who were there during their previous invasion on Pandora. In addition to the Colonel and his troops are therefore determined to eliminate the Omaticaya and Jake in particular. Jake is leading a Na'vi army towards the attackers while trying to fend them off. The supply lines for RDA trains, he infiltrates it effectively and makes off with food and munitions. One of his sons, Lok, disobeys orders during this procedure and suffers an injury. Jake reprimands him and requests that he be punished the following time. On the other hand, the Colonel runs into his superior, General Ardmore, who tells him about the Scouts, the Na'vi's flying allies. They are currently slowing down and attacking their helicopters. When the Quaritch learn of this, they devise a strategy to enter the forest, where they previously engaged in combat and amass some knowledge on them. Together with his other friends, he soon makes it to the jungle. Jake's kids, unfortunately, are having fun in the very same forest. Immediately after, the Colonel goes around their former battleground and finds his robotic suit, which still has his remains inside. Lok notices everything that is happening and promptly uses the voice transmitter he has around his neck to get in touch with his father. After hearing this, Jake advises Lok to avoid them and silently depart the area. Then, in order to make sure their children are safe, he and Neytiri fly towards the jungle. Tragically, the humans catch Lok and his siblings. When they attempt to flee, when the Colonel examines their fingers more closely, he discovers that the kids are his fiercest rivals. Neytiri and Jake show up at that precise moment and start attacking the troops. The most of their kids are successfully set free, but Spider is not. Unfortunately, the cruel humans take the boy away. Later, when the Colonel asks Spider his name, he recognizes him as his son right away. Jake approaches his wife in Omaticaya and advises that they leave the area and travel to the east coast. He worries that Spider will tell the Colonel and his men where they are. Jake also warns Neytiri that unless he joins the tribe, humans will continue to attack them because it was him who originally killed Colonel Quaritch. Neytiri does not want to leave her lovely house, but she is aware that what her husband says is accurate. She therefore agrees to move along him. General Ardmore, on the other hand, treats Spider cruelly by putting him in a revolving machine. He makes several unsuccessful attempts to get the boy to provide crucial information. Spider simply won't budge since he is too devoted to his Na'vi parents. The Colonel stops the spinning machine right away because he unexpectedly cannot see his son in this condition. He then goes up to the general and promises to deal with Spider in his own way. Later, in a different room, he encounters the youngster and convinces him that he is not a nasty person. He also reveals that he is there to return him to Earth. This makes Spider happy and he eventually consents to give him the details he needs. The following clip shows Jake and his family flying out in their Scouts from their native home. They finally land at Meetkaina, where another Na'vi tribe resides. After several days of flight, strangely, the local Na'vis are pale in color and favor staying in the water. They begin making fun of Jake and his gang when they come across them. Tanawari, the tribe's leader, and his wife soon make their way there. He expresses skepticism and claims that Jake and his family are unprepared to survive in the ocean. Jake assures them that they will quickly adjust to the environment, but he is desperately trying to save his family. Then he describes how some humans are pursuing him. When Tanawari learns this, she at last consents to let them stay and offers them a place to stay. Also, he asks his kids to teach. Jake's kids pick up swimming skills and use their unique species to navigate the water. As requested, the youngsters of Tonawari take their new acquaintances to the seashore and begin teaching them the fundamentals. Meanwhile, Loke, who is always up to no good, tries to make contact with a marine creature but slips and falls into the ocean. When they notice him, Tonawari's kids begin to laugh. The girl, Kiri, may be seen lurking deep inside the ocean as this is all going on. She has surprisingly settled in well and can even command certain sea creatures. The following day, Aonang, Tonawari's son, and his friends approach Kiri as she is underwater practicing meditation and begin making fun of her, making her sound freaky. As a result, Loke shows up and strikes Aonang. Later, when Jake learns about the incident, he admonishes his son, who is the clan chief's son, to go and apologize to Aonang. Loke reluctantly agrees and apologizes. Even if Aonang pardons him in front of others, he is still bitter inside, so he takes Loke to a planned event in order to teach him a lesson. A place under the guise of swimming. Loke had no idea that the area is home to hazardous sea creatures. Later, as Loke is fishing, a big animal swims briskly at him. Fearful and terrified, Loke searches for assistance but is unable to locate anyone. But just then, a huge beast by the name of Payakan steps in to save the day. With the aid of its large head, it quickly dispatches the predator. Here, we learn that Payakan is a tulkun, a tranquil and wise being. In the sea, there are thousands of tulkuns, which Payakan rescues Loke in the interim and brings him to the surface. The latter also assists the monster by removing some harpoons that were ostensibly inflicting pain on it. The two develop a lovely friendship as a result of this. Later, when Loke arrives on land, Tonawari summons him. The strict boss wants Aonang to apologize after learning about his son's misdeeds. The unselfish Loke, however, denies involvement from Aonang and takes responsibility for his deeds. This helps Aonang realize that the new Navis are actually not all that horrible. Loke eventually meets up with his brother. Amazement, no one takes him seriously. Instead, they make it known that Payakan is a murderer, which is why the other Tulkuns abandon them. Spider, on the other hand, informs the colonel about some aspects of Navi culture before taking him to Hallelujah Mountain to choose a scout. The colonel stumbles at first but quickly learns how to fly it and does so. He soon learns where Jake might be too, and gathers his army and marches for the Neytiri'S reef. When he gets there, he approaches some water Navis and asks whether they know Jake. The bad humans kill one of the Navis and set their homes on fire when the Navis shout no. The Navis maintain their position in the face of this. With no other alternatives left, the colonel orders his squad to pursue Plan B. He now intends to massacre many Tulkuns in the hopes that Jake will be attracted by this. But killing them also has another benefit. The Tulkuns possess a priceless liquid in their brains that can lengthen life. A liter of this liquid will cost millions of dollars here on Earth. A few hunters soon begin searching for the sea monsters. They hit them with many trackers, knocking them out. In a terrible moment, we witness a mother named Tulkun being mercilessly murdered while her child lies by her in shock. The trackers are still there inside the Tulkuns after the humans eventually depart. The Neytiri'S feel enraged upon learning that their comrades are being murdered, and choose to confront the assailants. Jake calms them down by pointing out that they must first tell the Tulkuns about the trackers. The only way they can stop another strike is by doing this. As Loke learns this, he immediately heads over to tell his closest friend Payakan. He was accompanied by Aonang and a few other residents. They ultimately run into Payakan and are ready to remove the tracker from him. The colonel and his hunting team, however, come in their whale ship. Loke contacts his father and tells him about them after witnessing them. He and his friends also succeed in removing the tracker from Payakan's body just in time. They then dive under the sea to conceal themselves while the colonel's team begins to look for them. Jake approaches Tonawari, in the meantime, and alerts him of the disappearance of their children. The latter is alarmed, and he immediately issues an order for his people to be ready for battle. As soon as everyone has their weapons, they all move towards the fight area, including Jake and Neytiri. The colonel, on the other hand, gives the go-ahead for his crew to attack the Tulkuns and search for Jake's kids. They eventually locate Kiri and Tuk after some searching, and they take them into custody on a net. Loke makes an effort to rip the net, but instead finds himself being pushed towards the whale ship by it. They are handcuffed to the ship's railing when the colonel, who is due any moment, arrives. He then removes the collar transmitter off Loke and begs Jake to give up so that his kids are protected. Without any other choices, Jake consents to his demands. At the same time, Payakan decides to save his best friend Loke. After seeing him shackled to the deck, he leaps onto the deck in a dangerous maneuver and begins to manipulate the enormous fins. This destroys the ship and kills a large number of soldiers. Making use of Jake and the Neytiri'S take advantage of this diversion to attack the colonel and his men. They desire to protect their kids, but also seek retaliation. In the meantime, Spider destroys the controller of the whale ship, causing it to crash onto the rocks and get submerged. To free Loke, Tuk, and Kiri, Jake and his oldest son Netayam quickly climb the deck. They then give the kids the go-ahead to head back to safety, but Locke objects. Instead, he makes the choice to protect Spider, his adopted brother. He is joined by Neytiri, and after some looking about, they come across Spider. The Colonel notices as they prepare to depart the ship and starts firing. Unfortunately, one of the bullets hits Neytiri, who suffers serious injuries. He is promptly taken to their mother on the coast by Locke and Spider, but he passes due to massive blood loss away. Neytiri begins to sob and wail inconsolably as she witnesses the death of her son in front of her eyes. The evil Colonel uses his scound to grab Kiri and Took in the meantime. He later gets in touch with Jake and lets Jake know that he is with both of his daughters. Jake manages to calm Neytiri down after learning this knowledge and convinces her to work with him to save their daughters. The latter complies, and furious, she calls her scound, grabs her bow, and shoots her arrows towards the ship. As soon as Jake gets close to the ship, he sets off an explosion that kills the Colonel's soldiers. Neytiri also appears and begins firing arrows at the surviving people, quickly murdering them. Jake rescues his young daughter Took in the meantime, but the Colonel also arrives at the same time. Kiri is being held at knife point by him. Then, after threatening Jake, the latter reluctantly drops his weapons. In the meantime, a vindictive Neytiri grabs Spider and threatens to kill him. The Colonel initially says that he is unrelated to Spider, but once Neytiri makes a tiny cut in the boy's chest, he departs from Kiri. Neytiri and her family then get ready to go. But the Colonel says he'll track Jake down and kill him once more. Afterwards, Jake comes to the conclusion that, in order to live peacefully, the Colonel must be killed. He therefore goes back to the fray. This time, the bitter adversaries engage in a traditional fist battle. The two go against one another stride for stride in this tough race, but in the end, Jake, our hero, triumphs. He succeeds in encircling the Colonel's neck with his arms and rendering him unconscious. Jake lets him drown in the water because he believes he is already dead. Sadly, he also finds it difficult to breathe and begins to sink, but, at the same time, Locke saves him and brings him back to the surface. Later on, Payakan drags the entire family to the shore. Spider, on the other hand, also rescues his biological father by pulling him out of the sea. Spider, however, refuses to leave the facility with the Colonel and goes back to his biological family. The lighting tubes accept Neytiri as their own in the last scene, where Jake's family and the entire Meatkaina tribe bury Neytiri's death at the bottom of the. Jake realizes he is in heaven with their gods as the film comes to a close as he recalls his fondest memories of his older son. The end. If you like this story, please subscribe to the channel and like it, to motivate me to bring you more stories like this.